Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Gritty Hour. Today I have a returning guest, Caroline Ailanthus, who was on quite a few years ago when she had written a book called Ecological Memory, which was a great book, and I believe that was during COVID. And now she's back with a new book. We're in the middle of a book that has two parts to it. So welcome back to the Gritty Hour, Caroline.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Good. It's a pleasure to have you back. So we had you on when you came out with ecological memory, and you've written a fairly recent book called The Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph, Book One,
Yes.
and that's been out for a little bit of a time, and somewhere a little further on up the road will be a book two to that. So tell our
Actually, I've just
yeah.
decided there will also be a book three.
Oh, good. You have a lot of material on that one.
Yeah.
So tell me, is this kind of like a fantasy book, The Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph?
Yes.
Yeah, so tell our listeners a little bit about that book.
Well, it's my first stab at writing within a specific genre. So naturally, I sort of bent the genre a bit, but it's high fantasy, or at least my version of high fantasy. The setting is sort of quasi-Roman Empire. The basic conceit of the fantasy is that this is a version of Iron Age Europe. I mean, it's not really Europe, it's, some other dimension or planet or something or other.
Right.
But it's like a version of Iron Age Europe in which the Ice Age megafauna, like mammoths and all of them, are still there. And they are the fantastic beasts of myth and legend. So a lot of the things in this book that are associated with fantasy and fantasy magic and whatever are, very scientifically plausible. They're, animals and plants and whatever else, but they're approached in a fantasy-like way. The mood is fantasy. Um, so the basic problem see, I don't think about plot as being a contest between a good guy and a bad guy, although there might be a good guy and there might be a bad guy.
Hmm.
I think of it as there being a problem that the protagonists have to solve. So the big problem here, and of course each protagonist has their own personal problems too, but the big problem is that the Nonani Empire, which is the analog of Rome, um, has a very large army, and so they need lots of weapons and armor and so forth, most of which is made out of steel. And their primary fuel is charcoal. So they're cutting down they're doing continent scale deforestation in order to make charcoal for arms manufacture, which is pushing all of these wonderful animals to extinction, and is also pushing a group of people. They're the dwarfs of the title, although the better word for them is derger. The derger. They are they're a different species of human. They're actually Neanderthals, is what they are, and they are they are culturally dependent on hunting these very large animals. So if they go, the Derger go. So there's this save the Derger movement among our species of human. And it gets all sorts of politically and economically complicated. But the movement starts to, like, it looks like it's going to do something and succeed. And the, for lack of a better word, military industrialist complex decides that can't be allowed to happen.
Hmm.
So they fight back and things get really ugly. So that is a problem that my protagonists have to solve.
And the military
And
industrial complex is at all the antagonist, I guess, in this story.
yes, it is the antagonist. There isn't an individual antagonist character.
Right.
It's this stratum of society.
Mhm.
Um, and so the first book, the one that's already published, basically sets up the problem. We get introduced to the main characters and all of their personal issues, and we get introduced to this problem and how it's developing towards a crisis. The crisis is, I mean, it's pretty clear that the crisis is going to be civil war. And then the next two books are about the war.
Mhm.
So that's
And
what's going on.
and the reason for the war is, I suppose that the dwarfs, as you explain, is the Neanderthal type humanoids in the story. Who are the elf, or is it one elf?
They are another human species. There are three human species in this setting.
Hmm.
I was kind of riffing on our world at one time. There was our species, the Neanderthals and the Denisovans.
Right.
The elves are not based on the Denisovans, they're based on elves. Um,
Hmm.
but you know, I liked the idea that both actual history and Tolkien had this world where you had these three different kinds of people.
Hmm.
So I liked that. Um, the elves are here. They're not immortal supernatural beings. They're just another hominid species. Um, but I mean, they're recognizably elf-like. You're going to read it and believe it. Yeah, it makes sense to call these people elves. They are also in danger of extinction, although not quite so critically. And for a similar reason, they're being marginalized and squeezed out. And
By whom?
by our species,
I
they're
see.
who are in this story referred to as ubum, which is a Derger word meaning newcomer.
Which would be you and I type
Yes.
people. Okay.
Although you and I both have Neanderthal ancestry. So,
Hmm.
we are, um,
Some of them are coming over for Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks.
yeah.
I'm just joking.
So, it's interesting to think about that we are the inheritors of Ubum, but we're also the inheritors of the Dirger. We
Hmm.
are their heirs.
Hmm. But your writing
Um,
style, what I like about your writing style, you don't restrict. There's no restriction on, like, you're incorporating iron. You you're basing it loosely on the Roman Empire era with
mhm,
prehistoric or fantasy characters embedded in it, and they have iron material.
mhm.
So you don't restrict yourself to time or anything like that, which is I like. That you just you incorporate it all in the story you want to tell.
Yeah, I mean, the Telegraph is there too. It's in the
Yeah,
title because it's in the book.
I was going to ask you
Um,
about that. Yeah.
one of the things that make elves different than Ubum and from Dirger is that elves are semi-solitary, which means, among other things, that they're outside the box thinkers. They don't have this socially imposed ideas about the way things are supposed to be and what things are supposed to mean. So they're really good at coming up with these just far out ideas and running with them. And so they've gone ahead and had the scientific revolution. And everybody else is just sort of like, whatever, you're weird. But sometimes the elves do come up with something useful. Like, hey, we figured out how to generate electricity. You want to see how to do this?
And the ovum
And
hadn't gone to that yet.
so the Nonani Empire decided, you know, actually we could do something with this, and they do invent the telegraph.
I understand. Okay. That's what I like about your style of writing is you don't compartmentalize or you don't restrict your what your character can do or from any point in time in history. I like that.
Good.
So how has the book been received so far?
Um, well, in terms of sales, I don't really know because I was at one point hoping to get the second book out sooner.
Hmm.
And then I was going to do a big marketing push when the second book came out. So the first book was sort of like a soft release situation.
Understood.
And then, sometime over the summer, I realized the timing was not going to work out for that. So I really only started marketing the first book over the summer, and I get quarterly sales reports. I don't get monthly sales reports
Hmm.
the way some people do. And I haven't gotten the third quarter figures yet, so I don't know what's going on.
Right.
Um, but the people I know personally who have read it really liked it.
Hmm. And
And
your reviews on Amazon are good too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So people like the fantasy. I guess what that would be my question. What would you think is your target audience, or which type of genre would it be most? It's hard to I know it's hard to throw it into a slot, but which genre would you say it fits in best to?
High fantasy, but with a kind of asterisk attached um because I don't use fantasy magic.
Hmm.
Um, I use yeah, I try and do something instead of that so the people who are looking for that will still be satisfied.
Hmm.
So there's the mythic and fantastical approach to ecology and animals and so forth. And there is the religion and spirituality of the characters, which I'm leaving it deliberately unclear whether their religious beliefs are accurate or real,
Hmm. Hmm.
but they're real to them.
Hmm.
So then there are all of these entities and powers that are involved, and a couple of characters are psychic, but I don't have people like going like zap with their wands and that sort of thing. I didn't want to go there.
Hmm.
Um, but you have the immersive world building. You have the um, world that is clearly and entirely not ours. You have the shout outs to established tropes like elves. Um, so I think people who like high fantasy are going to really like this. Um, I always, no matter who else I'm writing for, I'm always writing for science geeks.
Hmm.
That's in there.
Is that your favorite
And
genre?
I have a lot of favorites, but that's always in there.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one particularly, I think it's going to appeal to history geeks too,
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
because what I did was see my original inspiration for this story was I happened to pick up a book called Lincoln's Generals' Wives, which by the way is misnamed. It ought to be called Lincoln's Generals' Marriages because that's what it's about. It takes these four couples where the male half of each couple was a Union general,
Hmm.
two of whom were very successful and two of whom got fired. And the premise of the story,
Can you
the
say?
premise of the
Can you
book
say?
is
Can
that
mhm.
what?
I was going to ask you, can you say which of the three generals? Can you mention them by
Uh,
name or no?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. The two successful ones are Grant and Sherman, of course. And the two unsuccessful ones are Fremont and McClellan.
Okay. I thought you were going to say
And so
McClellan and Burnside, so I'm surprised about the Fremont, but go ahead.
the author's premise is that one of the things that determined which of these men was good at his job and which were not was the kind of support that all four of them had wives who wanted to be very supportive.
Mhm.
For two of them, that meant, okay, when you make a mistake, I'm going to call you on it. When you need something, I'm going to get it for you. We're going to do this. Um, you're going to do your job. And two of them had wives whose understanding of their job as wives was whatever my husband thinks or wants or does, that's just perfect. And both of them flew off into both of those men just sort of flew off into la la land with the approval of their wives.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I read this thing and it's like, oh my god, I had never realized how awesome Sherman and Grant were, both individually and as a pair. You know, they had like a Kirk Spock thing going on. So I wanted to write about them,
That's
but I
interesting,
didn't
yeah.
want to write historical fiction. I wanted to do something else. So then this whole thing evolved. Um,
Mhm.
but, you know, two of my protagonists are closely based on Sherman and Grant. The third is based on Lincoln. And a lot of it just sort of moved out from there where I have a lot of characters and a lot of sort of smaller, like the large scale plot is entirely original. The smaller scale plot points are mostly lifted from the American Civil War and, you know, just sort of moving the context and changing the pieces around. And then for fun, I put in some other things. There's, she's not in the first book, but there's going to be a character in the others who is based on um, oh, Grace O'Malley
Mm.
from Irish history, who was really cool. And there is one character who is partially based on Julius Caesar. So I'm just pulling in all of this stuff, right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because you're mentioning the Union generals from the Civil War era, and I know it tickled your imagination to develop them into the plot, right? And I have to ask how you got it centralized around the Roman Empire. I'm assuming around like the Julius Caesar era, or give or take a
Yeah,
couple hundred years.
more or less. I mean, it's not a precise time analog. Uh, you know, the Nonani Empire is a little bigger than the Roman Empire was in the first century BC.
Right.
Um, and there are just in some ways in which it's just not Rome. But yeah, it corresponds very roughly to Julius Caesar's lifetime, and you know, with this problem of as the society gets bigger and bigger and much more wealthy, uh, the republic is starting to fall apart, and then it just doesn't really require a whole big push
Hmm.
from, you know, just sort of like a little nudge from the right people to put things in crisis mode, which is what Julius Caesar did. So yes, and I ended up choosing that because I mean that was a fun week. There was like about a week when I was just like, wee, let's pull in this and let's pull in that and let's throw this at that and let that at this and can we all do this and be yay?
Take
I
the
was just so
kitchen sink
excited. And
approach, right?
what?
Everything but the
Exactly,
kitchen
yes.
sink approach. Yeah.
Yeah. And so once I decided I wanted to try high fantasy, you know, Tolkien's version of fantasy was his Middle Earth was, sorry, my nose keeps itching.
That's okay.
Uh, his version of his Middle Earth is based roughly on Europe's Dark Ages.
Hmm.
So like the way power and authority and the economy and so forth all worked. It's basically European Dark Ages.
Right.
And because Tolkien was just so excellent, a lot of people do that. You want to write fantasy, you basically do Tolkien uh, in your own way. And um, I decided that's kind of been done. I didn't want to do European Dark Ages as my basis, so I just decided to do Rome instead because I happen to know a lot about Rome. I was really interested in it for a couple of years as a teenager and read a lot, and um, I like that aesthetic. And Rome, particularly the Roman Republic, is in some ways really alien from our society. There's like a level of cruelty that was just normal then, and they didn't even try and justify it. And it's like we just can't wrap our heads around it today. And there's a, a level of ignorance on certain things that's also hard to wrap our heads around.
Right.
But on the other hand, there are ways that Republican Rome was a lot more modern. Like you had a somewhat democratically elected government. You had the concept of political representation. You had a citizenship, a multi-ethnic, multiracial citizenship.
Hmm.
You had courts. You had people. You had lawsuits. You had banks. All of this stuff.
And a Senate.
And yes, in a Senate
Yeah.
and money. There was money, there
Hmm.
was engineering, there's just all of this stuff
Right.
that, the whole idea, Tolkien's character Aragorn, part of his claim to authority, right, is that he is the 39th grandson
Hmm.
of a previous ruler.
Mm.
Right. So this is this world where this makes sense, where somebody's saying, hey, 39 generations ago, one of my ancestors was in charge, therefore I should be too. And people are like, yeah, that tracks.
Mm.
I, I just can't. I'm an American. No,
Do you try? Do you try
so I
and
chose Rome.
That's good. Do you try and remove your sensibility, like modern sensibilities, from your characters as you write them?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, Nonani is not quite as cruel as Rome was. I just couldn't. I just couldn't. Um, but it's substantially crueler than America is. There's a lot of really messed up stuff that just isn't they don't bother to justify it. Um, Slavery, infanticide, um, um,
Echo.
corporal and capital punishment are both in public and therefore entertainment.
Right.
Just
And
yeah,
the aforementioned propellant, which is ecological um, mistreatment.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Yes, there's a lot of that that I do work in, kind of on the edges, so most of it, like, you're not bombarded with it as a reader.
Hmm.
But every so often there's some sort of mention of sort of, wait, who are these people? And and then there's other things too, like their conception of gender. is really different than ours, as Rome's was, although it's not quite the Roman conception either.
Mhm.
But it's just a very different way of looking at who people are and why they're categorized that way. Um, um, and there's little things that are different too. Like I don't know whether classical Romans ate arthropods. Haven't gotten a clear answer on that, but Nonani people do.
Mhm.
You know, there's a scene where one of the main characters invites um, a former colleague over to talk about business possibilities and so forth. So she serves him some wine and a bowl of salted grasshoppers, and they sit there, eating grasshoppers as they talk.
And wash it down with the wine.
Yeah.
That would probably make you thirsty, I would think. Yeah. But a lot of the undercurrent of a lot of your work is ecological, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because and I have to ask in this scenario with the elf, the dwarf, and the telegraph, is there an intentional parallel? Because from an outsider looking into the book, um, it seems like there's a parallel to like the rainforest today, the situation in the rainforest today.
Um, and elsewhere.
Mhm.
Rainforest is not the only forest under critical threat.
Right.
Yes. Um, there's also, I think, more directly a parallel to climate change
Hmm.
because the issue is that they need fuel, and they need fuel in order for basically for the economy to work. The Nonani economy is based on slave labor,
Hmm.
and to get slaves, they have to be constantly at war.
Hmm.
And to be constantly at war, they need a big supply of steel. So if you cut out steel, you cut out slaves, and the economy will collapse.
Hmm.
Um, and certain people don't like that. So and it's not causing global climate change for them as fossil fuel is for us. It is causing regional climate change,
Hmm.
which that kind of deforestation does, and that's a big danger in the Amazon now. Is with forests make rain,
Hmm.
and there's a couple of different mechanisms by which they do this. But you do a continental scale. There's at some point, as the tropical rainforests are cut, if we get to that point, those regions are going to stop supporting rainforest at all
Hmm.
because the amount of rain will
Right.
drop.
And
So that's a very real concern.
well, forests cause rain and eat carbon monoxide. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, carbon dioxide. Yes.
no, dioxide.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's the real object of the metaphor is climate change. Although, of course, as you point out, continent scale deforestation is and has been a major issue in our world specifically.
Hmm. Now, the deforestation that's going on in your book is the side product is charcoal.
That's what's driving it. I mean, that's not the only thing that happens. There are other uses for wood.
Hmm.
Not paper. They haven't discovered paper yet.
Hmm.
They're writing on papyrus.
Right. Interesting.
Uh, but there are other uses for wood. And there is a demand for cleared land for farmland as well.
Hmm.
But the primary driver, and the driver without which the others would not be happening, is for charcoal, mostly for steel production, which is mostly for the military. There's also civilian uses of steel, and there are domestic uses of charcoal because they haven't invented the chimney. Is a problem. So in urban areas, they burn charcoal at home because there's much less smoke.
Mm. And the steel, is the armaments that the military in that era use restricted to that era historically, or is there like tanks driving around Rome,
It's mostly restricted to that era. Um,
like shields and
the
swords and?
specifics of what style of sword and whether that style of sword or that style of spear was in use in that particular century. It's not quite that fine, but generally, yeah, this is Roman era armaments. The only thing that I've added, aside from the telegraph, which does have military uses,
Hmm.
um, the only thing that I've added is the stirrup.
Oh.
And see, classical Rome didn't have the stirrup. They had horses, and you
Hmm.
could ride horses, and you could have a cavalry, but there were there are limits to what you can do on a horse if you can't brace your feet on something.
Hmm.
So that's why they used chariots in warfare. It's because they didn't have stirrups. So I don't really know a whole lot about horses, and I don't know a whole lot about cavalry warfare. But what I do know is in the context of the stirrup.
Hmm.
I don't know how to think in terms of armies have chariots,
Right.
so they don't.
I have to ask you, I don't want you to give away the plot, but I have to ask you, is the character that Abraham Lincoln fills, is he tethered to the telegraph like he was in real life in the 1860s?
Yes, I mean that
Mm.
doesn't happen in the first book yet, but yes, it's going to happen. There are
Right.
scenes of him stalking around the telegraph room.
Yeah, that's what that's it's a sad thing, but that's what he spent most of his time during the Civil War. While we're talking, do you mind if I share the Amazon page for the book so I can show the people on YouTube and Rumble um, what the book looks like first and foremost?
Please do.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Just bear with me a second. I don't know if you can see it on your end yet.
I can't yet. Oh, there
Uh,
it is.
you got it? Okay. So there's the book on the upper left if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us, the link to this Amazon page with the book will be in the show notes. So you can click right on it from wherever you're listening to us from. Uh, nice artwork. Wait, who was responsible for the cover art?
Me.
Oh, very well done. Um,
Thanks.
it looks like Rome.
I have to say, I did the cover art,
Hmm.
the graphic design that was done by the people at Saltwater Media.
I see. Okay.
Um,
That's your
I'm
publisher,
an
yes?
artist. I'm not a graphic designer.
Right. That's your publisher, Saltwater Media?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this also gives you a synopsis of the book, which I read before we recorded. So the purpose of book one, and now you're telling us it may be one of three, or at least one of
Hmm.
two, but maybe one of three, is basically the setup of the characters, the who could be the protagonist, who could be the antagonist, who are the propellants of the maybe Civil War. It,
Yeah, and what's going on politically, culturally, economically
right,
that's bringing this world to the crisis.
right. And book two will reveal a lot of the things, or resolve some of the issues, or take us through the next phase of the protagonist, the antagonist.
Well, I mean, assuming that there are three, which
Mm,
at this point is is pretty certain. I mean, I could change my mind, but I don't think I will. Um, so with book two as the middle book isn't going to resolve much either,
mm-hmm,
but we get into kind of the swing of things with the war.
mm-hmm,
And, it becomes a book about a war and a
mm,
book about people fighting a war together.
mm,
In this first book, the characters, um, the three protagonists, uh, they do meet and they interact some, but not a lot. They're mostly living three very separate lives.
right.
And then um, in book two, uh, they really become part of the same team.
Mm,
And their relationships
mm-hmm,
with each other come very much to the forefront of the story.
right.
And then the third book will actually provide what resolution is provided. I I do not promise complete resolution.
I got you. But you must have taken a lot of time, or at least put a lot of thought into taking characters from the 19th century and bringing them back to Rome, and how that would interact, their personalities would interact in that era as opposed to the era they actually lived in. I would think a lot of thought on your end must have went into that.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, first of all, I want to make clear I did a ton of research,
I would have think you would have had to, yeah.
which enables me to put in all sorts of historical little Easter eggs. Like, if you're the right kind of history geek to be able to do that, you're going to be reading along and you'd be like, wait, that's a direct quote from one of Sherman's letters.
Oh, see, there it is. See, I'm a Civil War enthusiast, so that's what intrigued me about bringing those characters into the Roman times, which I find fascinating.
There's um one of the biggest things that I had to do was um make them ignorant about a lot of things that they weren't, that's sort of difficult having to keep track of, okay, what do these people have to not know? Um, there's also
You mean if they were
Nonani,
1800
like
years?
Rome, is in is class stratified to a degree that 19th century America wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 19th century America, of course, had the racial divide, which is a form of class stratification. But among white people, um, class stratification was not formal. In Nonani, it is. There's a very clear upper class, a very clear middle class. I mean, there are legal distinctions between these things. So I had to work pretty hard to find ways to have, for example, the Lincoln analog born in poverty and end up as a plausible elected leader for the entire empire.
He had to hop over a few classes to get right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to manage things like that. And then there ended up being um, tricky elements that I didn't do on purpose. They ended up being necessitated by other decisions that I'd made. One of the things I wanted to that made me want to write. See, I'm in some way neurodivergent. I don't have a I don't have a diagnosis, but you know, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, maybe it's a duck. I mean, I'm kind of weird. And Sherman was too. I don't know what obviously he didn't have a diagnosis either. I don't know what it would have been if he had one. I don't know if that question even makes any sense.
Mm.
But to use a phrase I've seen poking around the internet lately, he was neurospicy.
Uh-huh. That's a good way to, I haven't heard that term, but yeah.
And so I wanted to write about neurodivergence and what it's like being that particular kind of different. So the way I did that is that Sherman's analog um, is a half elf. Um, and
He's half elf and half.
half of them.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And also uses feminine pronouns for, you know, various reasons. I can't explain that, but it is. I don't know
It's
if we want to spend our time on it. But anyway,
no,
so
but is it
yes.
self-evident if you're reading the book?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's all that counts.
Um, so, yeah, she is half elf and half ubum. And that was how I made her neurodivergent.
Hmm.
And then I get into writing a little bit and I realize, wow, I've made this character a member of a disenfranchised minority. Sherman was many things. One of them was a white American
Mm-hmm.
and a white American man. So, and he was also largely raised by rich people.
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, so there really weren't a lot of kinds of privilege in his world that he didn't have.
Mm.
And Gwen, short for Gwenessifer, by the way. I figure you're gonna have base a character on somebody whose middle name was Tecumseh. I need a
Yes.
long,
It was
yes.
actually that was his original first name,
Yes, I know.
but the reverend wouldn't have him baptized if they didn't throw William in front of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you have somebody named Tecumseh. You're gonna so yeah, Gwenessifer. She is. I mean, she's still upper class, and from a wealthy family, a wealthy and very powerful family. But she's a member of a minority,
Mm.
so she has that consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Great. How am I going to negotiate that and translate this character from somebody who had every reason in the world to take his privilege for granted?
Mm. At the same time, stripping him, as you said before, of everything he might know in the 1860s that he wouldn't know in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
So that's a complicated. You must have spent a lot of time on character development for that from that
Yes.
that aspect. Yeah. But
Yes.
it also makes it intriguing, for the reader, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would
Intriguing for
recommend
me too.
the people to go out and buy the book, and I hope you do. You keep that in mind from this podcast. If you buy the book from this podcast, keep that in mind as you're reading the book, because that's an intrigue to me. So, all right. So the Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph. We're recording this mid-November 2025. What do you think the ETA for book two would be, roughly, from your point of view now?
sometime in 2026,
Okay.
but I'm hoping the first half of the year rather than the second half.
Right. Okay. Well, that's fair enough from where you are. Um, and is there any added characters in book two? As people buy book one, they're probably going to want to see what happens with those characters in book two. So I'm assuming most of them will translate into book two.
Yeah.
Is there any add-on characters in book two that we can look forward to?
Yes. Probably the most significant is the analog of Granny O'Malley. Um, her name is Grania Wally. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I've never actually said her last name aloud. Walia? This is probably like you write things.
That's all right.
Grania Walia.
Okay.
And she is the queen of a separatist ethnic group called the Delta people. Basically, imagine if the Irish lived in the Mississippi Delta, like so Cajun Irish.
A different kind of
Uh,
blues. A different kind of blues.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so she is their queen, and she is indeed a pirate. And I'm just going to explain this one thing, but I'm not going to give context to how this happened. So
Right.
keep you guessing on that. But
Sure.
this one thing. Um, See, the historical Grace O'Malley, one of my favorite things about her story is that when she was getting old, she had spent her entire life resisting English authority,
Right.
trying to maintain her own plans
Hmm.
um, as autonomous as possible, trying to stay out of prison, and funding the whole operation with piracy is what she was doing. And when she was done doing that, so basically she's been maintaining this sort of low key war against uh, England this whole time and winning. When she gets old, she contacts Queen Elizabeth and says, you know, take pity on this poor elderly woman. I need a pension. And if you give me a pension, I promise to uh, fight a war for you if you ever need me. Like, uh, like how bold do you get? You not only basically ask your enemy
Hmm.
to pay your retirement and get it, but you also simultaneously argue that you're so old and decrepit that you need a pension and that you will go to war.
Right. Right. With the
I
understanding
just
that you're too old to fight. Yeah.
um I just love that. And so Queen Grania offers the same deal
Hmm.
to the Nonani um, government. And at the time, Abbas, who is the Lincoln character, he's not yet the equivalent of president. He's the equivalent of Speaker of the House, which is not something Lincoln ever was, but
Hmm.
Abbas was. So he makes this deal
Hmm.
with the Queen, like, okay, I'll make sure that I'll take care of you, and someday I may ask you for help, and then he does, and so she becomes the basically the head of the Navy,
Ah.
and And so there's this marvelous scene in the second book where there's a party on the Queen's flagship, and the protagonists are all there. And I imagine that the house band for this party are the Pogues. If you know who they were, you
The
can
Fairy Tale of
find
New
their
York, absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, of course, I can't say that in the novel. There's no way to do that, but I know that that's what I'm imagining. So
Hmm.
there's this party on this ship hosted by hosted by Grace O'Malley. The Pogues are playing, and Sherman and Lincoln are dancing together. The
Nice. Okay.
Pogues.
Yeah.
Yes, I had fun with this.
Yes. Yes. It takes a talented writer to bring personalities from different eras and have them all intermingle and interact with one another while at the same time trying to keep track of the historical aspects of the thing. It's
Yeah,
a nut. It's the you have a wild imagination. You manage to translate it into words, which not a hell of a lot of people can do, Caroline.
well,
So
I do try.
yes, I know I'm keeping you a long time, but I just wanted to show folks before I wanted to show them your WordPress page because I think they'll get a good feel for your writing style. But I just before we did that, I wanted to show them some of the past books in here on the Amazon. Oh
Should
no,
be
um,
all books. Select all books.
yeah, where am I? That's the most popular one. Oh, there it is. This is the one we discussed the last time you were on the show, the Ecological Memory book, uh, which was fascinating in and of itself. Um, but it's the same kind of writing style with the same kind of underlying theme in terms of ecological input into the way the books flow. Do you think all your books have that underlying theme of ecological preservation, maybe, or
They certainly all have, to varying degrees, have that kind of science
mhm,
behind them. My first book, which isn't on the screen at the moment, I see, To Give a Rose, it doesn't have the conservation theme because it's, most of it is set like 3.5 million years ago, and it just wasn't a concern there.
right?
Um, but the others, yeah, they do all have then, to varying degrees, bifurcation events, which I guess I never discussed with you. I don't know why
No,
not.
you were on the show for ecological memory specifically at the time. This was probably maybe 4 or 5 years, 4 years ago. You were
Yeah.
on the show. Yeah.
Bifurcation Events has come out since then. It's a
Okay.
sequel to Ecological Memory. It's a standalone sequel. You can read one without the other.
Uh-huh.
But it certainly has that science piece, and it does touch on conservation
Hmm.
at certain places, but it also has a big history component in it.
Mm,
The
interesting.
longest story in the piece involves involves a real fire, although the story is set in the fire is in our past and the story is set in our future. So it's further back in the past for the characters than it is for us.
Hmm.
But the Bar Harbor fire of 1947,
Ah,
which is a fascinating story in and of itself.
right. But conservation is basically the moral guidepost through most of your books.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's good. Interesting. And I also wanted to show, and again, I apologize for keeping you so long, but I wanted to show folks,
Keep
as
me
I
as long
said.
as you like. I'm having fun.
Okay, good. I wanted to show folks though your WordPress page, which I did touch on the last time you were on the show. Where these are just some musings that you have as you go along.
Yeah,
Uh,
when I have writing related news, like a
hmm
new book coming out, I do post it there.
right.
But
But
mostly
you do
it's
post pretty regularly, at least one a month or so, right? Wouldn't you say?
I try to do once a week. I haven't recently
Hmm.
because things have been coming up.
Yeah.
So I've gotten behind on posting, but I try to do once a week. Um, eh, the post you have on the screen is sort of like a, as the first yeah, I have something to say and I can't figure out where else to put it, so I'm putting it here. I
Right.
don't do that all that often. Most of the posts are, if they're not about my writing, they're about the writing process
Yeah, that's what I wanted
or
to say.
something like
You,
that.
Caroline, you do try and help other writers. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the recent posts I did read was you were saying, "Don't be afraid to write badly," which I
Yeah.
guess is a great tip, especially for younger writers who are just starting out, you know. And
No, I mean for everybody, but yeah,
yeah,
especially um for newer writers. I mean, I'm also an editor and a beta
mhm,
reader, and I'd really like to get into doing writing coaching and that sort of thing. So
right.
yeah, I like talking about writing. I like talking about craft. I really like helping other people with their work. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's good on you that you impart on that. Obviously, you're an experienced writer, and people can learn a lot from you. So to get back to the Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph, this would be a good time to buy this book, I think, so you can when book two comes out, you can be armed with the underlying theme of the first book, and you can read the second book to find out how it progresses. That's just
Yes,
my 2 cents in there. So I do appreciate you coming on, and so we'll look. Maybe you come on when the book two comes out.
I'd like to.
It'll afford me the opportunity to get myself involved in book one, because then I'll be just as anxious as all your other readers to find out what the heck happened to these characters, as they go along. So, but I do appreciate you coming on tonight. And again, the name of the book is The Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph. As I said before, you can find it on Amazon, the page you're looking at if you're watching us, and the link for it is just below on the show notes if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. So thank
Ooh,
you so much. Yes, go ahead, Caroline.
Um, you can also find it on pretty much every other online bookseller,
Barnes and Noble.
including the independent ones.
Okay, cool.
So
It's
you do
funny you
not
said
have
that.
to buy through Amazon.
No, but it's funny you said that because I think we had a conversation when you were on last about supporting your independent bookseller. And
Yes,
if they don't have this book, you want to go to your independent bookstore, which I happen to have here in Millbrook, New York. And it's if it happens to not be in there, the independent bookstore will go out of their way to order that book for you, and you'll have it within a
yes,
few days. And that helps everyone that way.
yes.
So, and I remember you and I spoke about that. It's good to bring it back up again. So thanks for bringing that back up. And thanks for being on the show, Caroline. It was an interesting. I know it's a little more than an hour, but it was an interesting hour and change. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how Abe Lincoln does when the telegraph comes into the picture. If he's going to be tethered to it like he was during the Civil War, in real life. So,
Doom
but good,
scrolling.
yeah, but good luck with this one, and we'll see you. We'll see you when the second one comes on. Just reach out to me then, and we'll have you back on to see how that one goes. Okay?
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
So am I, Caroline. Best of luck to you, guys.